Good morning. Hooray as the sign up, if you want to get California Today delivered to your inbox. ETA S Tuesday. So far this week, my colleagues have reported on why the shaky alertla eptidna T notify Angelenos about the two big quakes that jolted Southern California and how Representative Eric Swalwell became the first Democrat to drop out of the presidential race while the billionaire Tom Steyer jumped in. The Los Angeles Times published a sweeping if grim project examining the effects of a rising sea on California's cherished coastline. But today, I am going to dig into what Californians say is the state's most urgent and thorny problem, the housing crisis, which lawmakers are set to discuss this afternoon when they take up Assembly Bill 1482. I wrote about whom it could leave out. Audrey Jenkins's apartment isn't too fancy or large. Though she's had mold and leaks, her place is tidy and packed with almost 2 decades worth of mementos from a full life. When I visited earlier this year, she was proud to show off her latest project, a huge family quilt, 1 person per square, tracing her lineage back to 1841. Also close at hand was a poster board-sized thank you card from the preschoolers she taught at the nearby YMCA until she retired 2 years ago. At 82, Ms. Jenkins said having to move all that would be devastating. She doesn't know where she'd go. But thought a problem she and other tenants of Heritage Park at Hilltop, a complex in Richmond for low-income seniors, could face if rents continue to rise. AIAVE never had to think about living on the street, she told me recently. And, believe me, thought in the back of my mind. Unlike many in the Bay Area, Heritage Park residents are not being summarily evicted from long-time homes to make way for a high-rise or a tech start UPA's open plan headquarters, and suburban Richmond is still a far cry from the Mission District in San Francisco. Instead, experts say the situation at the complex illustrates a troubling gap in efforts to get a handle on the state's consuming housing crisis, the fixed incomes of many senior tenants keeping up with even smaller, incremental rent increases. As a result, one of the last remaining tenant protection proposals before legislators this year, AB 1482, may not help them. Heritage Park residents said they first became alarmed about a year ago when they received notices that their rents would increase by as much as 12%. Tenants started meeting with one another about heading off the change and got help from organizers with the Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment. After some work with Richmond city officials, the rent increase was reduced to closer to 3%. Residents who must be at least 55 to live in the 192-unit complex, though many are older told me they were left feeling on edge, so they poured their energy into activism. They took bus trips to Sacramento, where they camped out in lawmakers' offices and carried handmade signs advocating for a suite of bills, including AB 1482, aimed at protecting tenants like themselves. Then, late last month, residents were sent notice that their rents would increase again, on August 1, by an average of almost 5%. For Ms. Jenkins, who has a 2-bedroom, that translates to $1,465 in rent, up from $1,396, which itself was a difficult jump to make last year, from $1,351. Her income is about $2,800 per month, an annuity from a government job she worked for 30 years. Jeff Brown is the president and chief executive of USA Properties Fund, the Roseville-based company that owns and manages Heritage Park. He said the company's hands were tied. Maintenance and insurance are getting more expensive, he said, as are regulatory costs associated with building new housing. Thought where he said he thought legislators needed to focus, encouraging the building of supply. This whole movement to solve the problem by rent control, in my opinion, is going to have an adverse reaction, he said. At every corner, developers have to go through hell to get a project built in California. He emphasized that the rent increases at Heritage Park were well within legal bounds, both according to the City of Richmond and according to rent limits for government-subsidized affordable housing. Those limits are tied to a regional area median income determined by the federal government. Officials at Richmond Rent Program said Heritage Park rent increases were technically in compliance, since ETA is not subject to local rent controls. But Paige Rusa, the program's deputy director, said there is a broader disconnect between what the Department of Housing and Urban Development deems affordable for Richmond's low-income renters and what they can actually pay. The way their formula works is not really taking into consideration the local situation, she said, noting that Richmond's incomes are lumped in with those of Walnut Creek, a wealthy East Bay bedroom community, and Oakland, which is grappling with its own wave of tech-fueled gentrification. Case in point, the median family income in the Oakland-Fremont metro area that HUD is using this year is $111,700. That includes Richmond. But according to the U.S. Census Bureau, the median household income in Richmond is $61,045. THATA is near the core of a looming problem for communities across the state, said Nari Ree, the director of the Retirement Security Research Program at UC Berkeley's Center for Labor Research and Education. Just because high rents are legally defensible and are supported by the market doesn't mean they are sustainable for a fast-growing and increasingly vulnerable senior population, she said. Research she has worked on has shown that more Californians, especially women and people of color, are retiring with fewer resources. And there is almost no way that the state will be able to build enough below-market rate homes for them. We always talk about the housing crisis, but ETA is going to be really dire for seniors, Ms. Ree said. There is this kind of attitude, we will charge whatever we can, and there is no essentially moral calculus about what is actually a justifiable rent increase. According to a 2015 report Ms. Ree edited, well more than half of Bay Area seniors 65 and older who were renters did not have enough income to meet their basic needs. Those numbers were projected to get worse. Assemblyman David Chu, the author of Assembly Bill 1482, said he knew the bill was not a complete fix. It would bar rent increases of more than 7% plus inflation or 10%, whichever is lower, and was recently amended to require landlords to show a just cause for evictions. But the law would sunset after 3 years, and that 7% plus inflation figure represents a compromise that at least one group described as watered down to the point of being counterproductive. And lobbying groups for landlords have opposed it, saying it would discourage crucial new development. Still, Mr. Chu said the shelving of Senate Bill 50, the high-profile and controversial proposal to boost housing supply, has made tenant protections even more urgent. We have millions of tenants who are a rent increase away from being able to make it, and our hope is that the rent gouging cap will help many of them, he said. Elsa Stevens, a 65-year-old who moved into Heritage Park 6 years ago with her husband so they could be close to their autistic son's group home, said she had not given up hope that the state could provide some relief even if ETA is not for her. That 10% cap doesn't help most low-income people, but it helps the young families and young professionals, she said recently. We getting Californians used to the idea that something has to be done. California Today goes live at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Time weekdays. Tell us what you want to see, CA Today@NewYorkTimes.com. Were you forwarded this email? Sign up for California Today here. Jill Cowan grew up in Orange County, went to school at UC Berkeley, and has reported all over the state, including the Bay Area, Bakersfield, and Los Angeles. But she always wants to see more. Follow along here or on Twitter, @Jill Cowan. California Today is edited by Julie Bloom, who grew up in Los Angeles and graduated from UC Berkeley.